your hips and apply pressure is very important. Because it keeps you dynamic. Walk around the head, so as we're here, I got here, okay? I want to be dynamic. I want to be able to roll the hips, move, and so forth, okay? Remove his frames here, I'm able to mount through movement. It's a lot more deceptive than you just sitting here holding stuff. Blame that on Christian and Aaron. Come on over here. Then to try to mount like this, everybody knows you're trying to mount. Because now his frames are in the way. You take this frame off, roll your hip this way, back here. Now, when you're controlling somebody like this, you're completely restricting your movement, and you're just basically holding him. And it's very difficult to hold our students, because here I give an opportunity to frame. Just gonna move the hip, and immediately side control is lost. And what was that holding for? It's nothing. So control through movement. So as we're here, if you notice, he needs two frames. He needs one on my head, but for this one to work, he needs one on my hip. Okay? Now, how connected he is going to depend on me, because I can begin to disconnect it. This frame's totally useless. This frame's totally almost dead. Because like I showed you guys yesterday, if he's framing here, now this frame works, hip out, and head. So hip, shoulder. See how he moves. When you disconnect that hip frame here, so look, now remove this, just don't use it. Move with this frame. You can't really move, because he needs to use this frame to make this one work, okay? Now, for me, I know he needs to use this frame to make this one work, so I disconnect here, pull it off, switch my hip this way. We did this yesterday. Now from here, I can switch my hip here. So when you switch your hips facing the head, you get into a position called scarf hold. As he's framing here, he's framing here. And remember, in side control, you're either gonna control the head or the hips. For me, I would rather control the hips, because if his hips can move, his legs and feet can move. If you're controlling the head, meaning if you're controlling the hips, he's restricted on the head and he's restricted in the feet. When you're controlling the head, he can move his hips and his legs. So I'd rather control the hips. Because now, even with these frames, as he tries to move, I can move with him. I can move with him, because my elbow is controlling this hip, and my right hip is at his right hip. If I'm here on my knees and doing the standard classic hold here, I'm on my knees. I'm not even applying pressure on him. This is even hard right here. And I don't like it. He hips out and moves his head away in front, and now we're back in an open guard. And what was the 4-4? So now, when you switch your base, this is switching base. So as I'm here, I'm gonna switch my base here. This is basically scarf hold. This, not basically, this is scarf hold. My knee is under his shoulder, and my left arm is cupping his tricep, because I'm trying to basically pull this arm out of the socket, out of the shoulder socket. This foot has to be back here, because I assume he's gonna try to frame me here and hip out. So I have to be dynamic, okay? If he tries to walk his hips away, he tries to walk his hip into me, because his objective, really to free himself, is to pull this elbow down to the mat. That's bad for me. Well, you switch, go the opposite way, okay? But these feet have to provide you with balance. You never want to be here and just go like this and go, like I see you guys doing, and then you freeze, and then you're like, oh, like there's a camera up there, and you're like, oh, you know, taking a photo. This is just a position from which you need to be able to apply pressure. That foot keeps you from being rolled backward. Because if my feet are here, I have no balance, and he moves his hip and pushes me into that open space. As I'm here, I'm framing the hip. I'm pressuring right in the hip, and then I disconnect, slide underneath this hand, just underneath here, and then keep my head down. From here, what I want to be able to do is control this arm so that I can begin to slide my hip back, let go of his collar, elbow, And then I want to step over his head and hip into potential arm lock. You may get it, you may not, but I assure you it's going to wake him up. Okay? So here, controlling the head. Your hand reaches for that collar here. And if you notice, my hip is not on the mat. This is pulling here. Okay? I can also begin to potentially move his arms into these positions, but it's different than a scarf hold. I mean, kesa gatame. So here you're limited on these positions here. I have the scarf hold here, my right hand pulling, and my right elbow is pulling down to hip because I'm controlling his shoulder. I don't want him to turn on his right side. Right side. Okay? If I'm here weak, turn on your right side. And you can pull that elbow in. I don't want that. When he's framing me here, you gotta understand also, this is also key lock as well. And you keep your chin down here so that as he's trying to frame, move, and so forth, this right here, key lock, but he'll hide it back there. Yes. Scoot back, step over, pinch that elbow. And then you also have this. The Mike D. The Mike D. The Mike D. The most important thing is for you to be able to roll the hips. If you're on your knees, you're not rolling the hips, you're on your knees. So here, I extend the right leg, hip, 2 frames here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here, 2 frames, maybe his feet are up, I can't really mount. Go back to this here. Now go back to scarf. Okay. From here, he frames me here, controlling his shoulder, he moves around a bit. And I'm dynamic here. He's moving, moving, moving. Scoot back here, elbow. Foot goes on the mat and heel walks it in, and I push my heel. And the mat so my toes are off the mat while this knee pinches his elbow. Get to the scarf over here. I'm pulling this arm right here. You notice my hip is rolling him this way. He moves around a bit. Yes. I go scoot back. And I turn into him here. As this foot is off the mat. The ball of the foot, this right knee is pushing in his shoulder. And then I pinch the elbow. And I hit. Okay? So all I want you guys to do is control, 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 and get into the scarf. Here, he's framing here. Scarf over here. Good control. He's moving around. Tries to pull that right arm down. Can't do it. Good. Right here. I may want to get this arm out of the way. I go here. He moves around. Yes. Back. Push here. 1. In order to get your foot over, one last thing. You have to scoot your hip back, elbow comes back, and you look that way, push this way. As I step over here, but not too far, and then I sit back on my right hip. Okay, so for those of you who have done this before, you understand you have to tilt them this way here, look at their foot, so you're, like you walk. Get my head's not like face on the mat, but I need to get that angle because otherwise it's hard to get that leg over. You don't want to heel him in the face. This foot pushes you up. And those action sounds are real. He's not fake.
No, it's good pressure.
Okay, so you're going to get this arm lock, and that's the first one you're going to go for. And you're going to watch what happens with this arm because oftentimes this arm is back here because they don't want to put it in front because he puts it in front. It's key lock. He hides it again. So you have the arm off. But if he twists this arm and pushes, yes, right there. I know I've lost that arm, and you immediately attack this arm. Okay. But we'll attack that one second. Look at Mike. Look at me. Like he's with my arm. Okay, ready? Let's go. What you do? Partner up with somebody who does not know as much as you do. You can work in pairs or trios.